The next thing I'm going to add to this 2-point exterior or city block scene is going to be sidewalks on each side of my road and a road separation line. So I'm going to start with my sidewalks on the right-hand side. So I'm the artist. I get to decide the distance that my sidewalks are going to be from the edge of my buildings, but I have to always remember that my ruler, in this case, has to line up with my vanishing point on the right-hand side. So I'm going to keep this end of my ruler on my vanishing point. I'm going to swing the other end out a little bit to give myself some space for my sidewalk. And then I'm going to draw a line that doesn't quite touch my vanishing point and goes down close to the bottom of my page, but doesn't touch the bottom of my page. So it's about a 1/2 inch from the bottom of my paper. I'm going to do the same thing now for the left-hand side. So my ruler is going to line up with my vanishing point on the left as my kind of pivot point here. It's going to stay attached to that vanishing point. I'm going to move my ruler down a little bit. So I've given myself some space for my sidewalk. And I'm going to draw a line again that doesn't quite touch my horizon line or my vanishing point and goes down until it connects with my converging line of my sidewalk on the right-hand side. So I'm starting these sidewalks here. To end the sides back here that are really close to the buildings, way in the back, I can't do a horizontal straight over. It's gonna look like it's a horizontal straight over. That's because it's very close to the horizon line, and the closer we get to the horizon line, the straighter our lines get. But to be accurate, I'm going to take the end of this converging line on the left-hand side. I'm actually going to line that up with its opposite side vanishing point. So the left converging line of my sidewalk lines up with my vanishing point on the right. And I'm going to draw towards the right until it meets the side of that building. And you can see that it looks very close to horizontal, straight horizontal, but it's a little bit at an angle. Again, that's because it's very close to the horizon line. So here on the right-hand side, where this converging line of my sidewalk stopped, I'm going to line that up with its opposite side vanishing point, so the vanishing point on the left, and then I'm going to draw a little line back until it reaches the side of my building there. So I have the top part of my sidewalk done. Now I need to give myself a little bit of a curb because the sidewalk is raised up from the street level in most city blocks. So I do that by adding in verticals. So where this 2 converging lines met, way over on the left-hand side here, I'm going to do a small little vertical straight down. Again, that's parallel to the edges of my building or parallel to the side of my picture plane. I'm going to do the same thing now for the center where those 2 converging lines meet, the corner of my city block here. I'm going to do a small vertical down from there. It's a little bit longer than the other ones. And the same for the right-hand side. So way over here on the right-hand side of my city where those 2 converging lines met, I'm going to do a vertical, small little vertical straight down from there. So now I need to do the curb thickness. So at the bottom of the vertical, that is the center of my city, my sidewalk here, the center of my road, where I can see the buildings converging off in 2 directions. The bottom of that center one is going to line up with my vanishing point on the right-hand side, and I'm going to draw all the way back until those 2 verticals, until it meets the other vertical. I drew it a little bit too long, so I can erase off the extra. It should look like it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller because it's going back in 3D space. So now I'm going to do it for the left-hand side. So the bottom of that vertical, that's my curb, lines up with my vanishing point on the left. And I'm going to draw, again, back towards the left until it meets my other vertical. Way back there. And I can, again, erase off the extras that I overdrew. So that's my sidewalk and my curb, but my sidewalk is not one big slab of concrete. it's divided into square sections of it. And this, just like in our 1-point exterior, is affected by atmospheric perspective. So again, things that are closer to me are going to be bigger. Things that are farther away are going to get smaller and smaller. So I have to remember that when I'm starting to do these blocks for my sidewalk. The first ones that are down here near the corner of my sidewalk here are going to be large. As they go back towards my vanishing point, they're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'm going to start with my lines on my sidewalk on the left-hand side. And they have to converge to the opposite side vanishing point. So my ruler is going to stay lined up with my vanishing point on the right as a pivot point. And then I'm going to move it along like so. So I'm going to give myself a lot of space for this first one, because again, it's going to be larger. Keeping my ruler lined up with my vanishing point on the right, I'm going to draw a line down towards the left from the edge of the buildings until it meets the edge of the curb. So now I'm going to do another one, but I have to remember that it's got to be shorter than this first one, or smaller than this first one, because again, it's affected by atmospheric perspective, where things that are closer to me are bigger, things that are farther away get smaller and smaller. So I'm just keeping my ruler lined up with my vanishing point on the right and drawing down towards the left, and every once in a while checking to make sure that they're getting smaller and smaller as they're disappearing back in 3D space. So same thing here, just keeping it lined up with my vanishing point on the right in this case, getting them smaller and smaller until they go back and then reach the edge of my sidewalk. And we're just eyeballing it for now, and that's fine. But you want to make sure that each section is getting smaller and smaller and bigger, smaller as it goes back towards the vanishing point, or larger as it goes towards the bottom of my page or closer to me. So now I'm going to do the sidewalk lines on the right side of the picture plane. And that's going to start the same way that I just did for my lines of my sidewalk on the left here. So I'm going to line my ruler up with the opposite side vanishing point. So if I'm doing the right hand side sidewalk lines, it's going to line up with the left hand vanishing point. So left hand vanishing point, that's going to stay pivoted right there, and I'm going to draw down towards the right. So this stays lined up with my vanishing point, and I move my ruler over, remembering that these first ones should be large. And then as it goes back in our 3D space here, they're going to get smaller and smaller. And every once in a while I want to remove my ruler so I can check them to make sure that they are looking visually smaller, or that there's less space between them because of atmospheric perspective. I'm going to continue that all the way back until it hits or reaches the edge of my sidewalk, or finishing out my sidewalk. So I have lines that are dividing up the space of my sidewalk, going back in perspective, kind of smaller spaces here, getting larger as they come down towards the bottom of the paper. I'm going to add in a line that divides the road into 2 lanes on each side next. So I'm going to start with the right hand side, and again I can decide as the artist how much lane to give. I just want to make sure that my ruler always stays lined up with the vanishing point, in this case on the right hand side. So I'm going to give myself some space from the edge of my curb, making sure that ruler lines up with the vanishing point on the right, and I'm going to do some dotted lines, making sure that they're small and closer together. The closer they are to my horizon line and my vanishing point, getting longer and spaced farther apart, the closer they reach the bottom of my paper. Again, atmospheric perspective. Things that are closer to me are larger, things that are farther away are smaller. Same thing now for the left hand side. I'm going to have my ruler line up with my vanishing point on the left. I'm gonna give myself some space so it doesn't touch the sidewalk or the curb there. And I'm gonna start drawing those lines again, making sure that my ruler stays lined up with that vanishing point on the left. Small, short lines. The closer it is to my horizon line, more distance between them, longer lines as it approaches, in this case, the bottom of the page. So now I have my city block with the sidewalks and 2 roads going back in 3D space in 2-point perspective.